One of the mobile kings, Samsung, has built itself into a massive mobile and electronics empire, though its story starts much earlier. Founded as a grocery trading store on March 1st, 1938, Lee Byung-chul started his business in Taego, Korea, trading noodles and other goods produced in and around the city and exporting them to China and its provinces. In the late 50s, it began offering insurance policies, such as marine insurance and life insurance, yet it wasn't until the 70s that it became the electronics business we know today. Over the years, the company has evolved significantly, bringing innovation into countless markets, going well beyond just mobile and electronics. In fact, Samsung generates over 20% of South Korea's GDP. This basically means that if something went wrong at Samsung, the entire country's economy would be in jeopardy. So what else don't we know about this digital monster company? In this video, we're going to show you 10 facts that you need to know about Samsung. We're Only Brands, the channel dedicated to bringing you awesome, regular content on the world's hottest brands. Let's do this. Number 1. Quality first. Lee Kun-hee, the son of Samsung's founder, served as the company's chairman from 1987 until his death in 2020. He's responsible for Samsung's rise to one of the world's greatest businesses. He's also responsible for one of the most bizarre Samsung facts. When Lee Kun-hee became chairman, Samsung wasn't known for quality. Mostly, it had been focusing on quantity. Consequently, in 1995, Lee Kun-hee ordered employees to gather 150,000 old Samsung phones, smash them to pieces with hammers, and burn them, wearing headbands that said "Quality First." That episode marked the beginning of Samsung's transformation. Number 2. Samsung Artillery. Other than phones, the Korean giant also produces tanks, howitzers, amphibious assault vehicles, and other war machines. It first got into the defense industry in 1983 as Samsung Techwin and has continued to develop weaponry ever since. Armies around the world rely on Samsung's creations. For instance, Finland bought 48 K9 Thunder howitzers in 2017, India ordered 25 units in 2018, and Norway bought 24 in 2021. Techwin's biggest market, however, is South Korea. Since Samsung started producing these artillery systems, the country has bought 1,136 K9 Thunders. Number 3. First products. The first electronics ever produced by Samsung was a black and white TV in 1970. The company expanded a great deal in the following decades, and in 1986 entered into the mobile game with a car phone. While Samsung's early TV efforts were fairly well received, the first cell/car phone from the company was poorly received and sold terribly. In 1974, it started making washing machines and refrigerators. Various other home appliances followed, including microwave ovens and air conditioners. By the way, a lot of hard work and care goes into these videos, so if you could help us out and click the subscribe button, we would greatly appreciate it. Number 4. First CDMA. The Samsung SHC100 was released in 1996, making it the first phone to utilize CDMA technology. Being the first to use a standard many see as restrictive and inferior to GSM probably isn't much to brag about now. However, at the time, CDMA was a new technology, and before fast 4G LTE technologies actually had some real advantages over GSM. This might not be the case anymore, but Samsung still deserves some props for its willingness to try a new standard. Number 5. First watch phone. Some Gear family variants have allowed you to text or even make calls without tethering your phone, but the watch phone market began much earlier in 1999. Samsung was the first pioneer, and one of the only ones since, to build a watch that doubled as a phone. Dubbed the Samsung SPH-WP10, this unique watch phone could not only tell the time, but also make phone calls for up to 90 minutes. After that, the battery was depleted and you'd have to run over to a charger. The screen was of the backlit monochrome LCD variety, and there were physical buttons for navigating around the menu. There were even voice commands for dialing your contacts. Pretty fancy. Number 6. First smartphone. Samsung may not be the first to make a smartphone, but it was one of the first players to truly get aggressive about the market, introducing the first PDA phone with a color display in the United States market in 2001. Called the SPH-i 300, this bad boy was designed for Sprint's network and ran on Palm OS, with all the functionalities of the standard PDA with the added bonus of making calls. So yes, the SPH-i 300 can be considered Samsung's first go at making a smartphone for the US market. Wow, things surely have changed a lot since then. Number 7. Galaxy's success. Most people primarily think of Samsung as a phone company. That's certainly not the case, although it is phones that generate the vast majority of its profits. One of the most successful phones Samsung has produced is the Galaxy S3, which first launched in May of 2012. During its lifespan, it sold a total of 70 million units at one time, selling at a rate of 500 phones per minute. That was an especially juicy fact, right? I think that one definitely deserves a thumbs up. Number 8. Samsung employees. A dozen miles south of Seoul in Suwon, you'll find Samsung Digital City, one of the world's largest office parks. Its 135 buildings accommodate 35,000 employees. Those who work in Suwon campus have free access to 9,000 umbrellas, 650 employee clubs, 92 food menus, 3 soccer fields, and an electronics industry museum. Oh, and they get free healthcare too. This should mean that all Samsung employees have top quality working conditions, right? Well, in 2019, Samsung Vice President Kang Kyun-hoon was sentenced to 16 months in prison for union-busting activities at Everland, an amusement park run by Samsung. So it'd seem the mere existence of all of these unions doesn't necessarily guarantee employee perks. And amid all the raves about the tech innovations and fancy features of these devices, the lives of the mostly female workers who make them have been virtually ignored. Few consumers or reporters are aware, for example, that half of all Samsung phones are manufactured in Vietnam by a female majority workforce in their 20s. Confidential interviews with some of these female workers revealed the following. It was reported that they experienced episodes of dizziness or fainting at work. High noise levels violated legal limits, and after standing at work for 70 to 80 hours a week, they reported pain in their bones, joints, and legs. Furthermore, not a single worker that was interviewed received a copy of her work contract, a violation of Vietnamese labor law. Among the most alarming information were reports that miscarriage is very normal. As one worker said, "It's very normal if they're young. If they're pregnant for the first trimester, it's very difficult. They miscarry a lot." However, this is not the first indication that work in the electronics industry may be associated with reproductive harm. In South Korea, Samsung's home country, a peer-reviewed scientific study revealed high rates of spontaneous abortion and menstrual aberration among female microelectronics workers aged 20 to 39 years old. The advocacy group Support for the Health and Rights of People in the Semiconductor Industry has documented over 300 cases of severe and often fatal occupational illnesses among electronics workers in South Korea, many in Samsung factories. Despite numerous South Korean court and government rulings that find factory conditions responsible for leukemia, lymphomas, brain tumors, multiple sclerosis, infertility, and other profound health problems in young former workers, manufacturers continue to deny their responsibility and refuse to identify the chemicals that they use. Number 9. Apple versus Samsung. Whether you like or hate Apple, there's no denying they came up with the first true smartphone device. Everyone else copied the tech, some more so than others. The first Samsung smartphone came out in 2009, but it wasn't overly successful. However, when the Korean maker started overtaking Apple in terms of market share in 2011, the latter sued the former over patent infringements. There were 2 major lawsuits, the first of which Apple won in 2014 for $120 million. The second was litigated and appealed multiple times. In 2018, a jury ruled that Samsung owed Apple $539 million. Samsung said it had appealed yet again, but the two giants reached an agreement before that, closing down the case after 7 long years. Number 10. Samsung stats. It seems like adults have similar tastes when it comes to smartphones, at least in the US. About 40% of those older than 25 go for an iPhone, whereas 25 to 30%, depending on the specific age group, opt for a Samsung smartphone. This is true for all US adults, except for the youngest ones. Merely 20.9% of adult Gen Zers have a Galaxy phone, whereas 52.9% have an iPhone. We aren't sociologists, but that sounds like a massive problem for Samsung over the next decade. We can't wait to see how they tackle it. We appreciate you sticking around until the end of the video, and we hope you enjoyed. But why stop now? Click these videos for more awesome content.